开始了。
全程英文还是？
英文。
Hi guys, today we're just going to talk about a few subjects here, and the first of them is, well, our way of communication over all the ages. What's the most original way of communication? Of course, at least for humans, it's speaking. Well, with our mouth, with our vocal cords. When our vocal cords, when they vibrate, we produce, well, sound. This is the most original way. But today we're talking about like more transmitting a message in a long way, well, afar, something like that. And the most original way to do that is just screaming. Scream at the top of your lungs. Then, well, a long time ago, small social groups will just use this technique since it's the most useful, but I don't know how that won't draw in lions or some other beasts. And then after that, well, humans evolved, and instead of small hunting groups, small hunting and gathering groups, they kind of merged in with whole civilization, and sometimes these groups, they will interact with each other, and in this type of interacting with each other, they found many ways of transporting messages. Some are done just by humans, some by humans riding on some mounts. You know, humans, they are not a viable way of transporting too much messages. At that time, I would say that most people write on things, not on paper, but on stone, so maybe something much more valuable than that, and that is really hard to well, at that time, they won't write something on a piece of paper, then use a messenger to transport it to another place. It's usually just someone who is going to say it and remember it, say it. That would be much more comfortable for the king, and these are like for tribal leaders. They will have these messengers who will maybe just say to them, go, set off on a journey to whatnot kingdom and say to the king that we want a diplomatic relationship, something like that. And that's only viable to kings and someone with a lot of power, like a tribal leader, but not some everyday people. But that's when we're still hunter and gatherer communities, maybe a bit more than that. But that is, well, that time we haven't really started doing agriculture. After we did agriculture, we could form small cities and something much larger than that, since agriculture means that we don't really have to be like someone who can do all the things, hunter, gatherer, maybe a teacher or whatever. We can like specify into a teacher, a hunter, and someone who just plants plants. Once that we did that, our communities got larger and larger and larger, eventually forming like small towns and of course cities by the end. Once that we have this, then we'll get to the messenger era. At this time, messaging, and then we could use some sort of paper or at least something else that we could use to transfer messages quickly and some lightweight to do it as well. At this time, there are messengers, not like the mail community in mail like we have today. That wouldn't be possible. Mail would usually get lost, and if it's long distance in between cities, it would take a month, just a month, since people at that time usually walked or used mounts like horses or camels, mules, something like that, and they walk at an incredibly slow pace. They don't have anything like cars, and usually maybe say a lot of the mail will get lost in this transaction. The worst thing is that people won't even know it when their mail gets lost. And of course, if the other wants to just reply, the possibilities of the first person who sent that getting it will be even lower. Even if all this works out, it would take a year or so. So think about having a pen pal back then. It would be really difficult. Okay then, once we got into cities and like in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, sometime like that, our human civilization was sophisticated enough that we started training animals as well, like dogs or anything. Well, we did that a whole while back, but at this time we started training pigeons. pigeons are just a really great way to transport information since, well, a pigeon is a bird and flying is a lot better than walking. Well, maybe because they go really faster and they aren't afraid of hard terrain. If this is, say, a pigeon, something like this. I don't know if you would call this a pigeon, but this is a pigeon, and they will have like two small legs. And usually what people will do is, you see, they roll up little pieces of paper and then they'll, well, write words on it. Let's say, Jerry. Then we'll just curl it up and maybe use a small rope or some other kind of adhesive to stick it to the bird's leg. And because pigeons are actually incredible animals, they could transport these sort of messages for a long time and they won't really lose their way. It's like they have a sort of compass in their heads, and well, scientists have said before that pigeons are really good at coordinating, and finally they will go back to their home. That is, the owner who sent this message, well, in the first time, they will finally receive the pigeon, and that will probably be the end of it. But pigeons, they aren't really too good at flying long distances. They will just tire it out. Most likely it's just inside the city that they do this, or in short distances, so they don't tire themselves out. Their flying speed is great, like most likely faster than any other, so that's just great. But then we're just gonna evolutionize to the next phase of society. At this time, we would have males and maybe not yet cars, but some horse cars. What do you call that? Like maybe two horses. Horse. And then the horse will just drag one cart, and then, well, in this cart there might be male, and people will sort of just sit here or over their mount, and then they'll like do this and try to like ride them out and then guide them to a place. So they'll have a whole lot of riding capacity. Once they have this capacity, they can actually put in here a lot of other stuff as well, as long as they're walking on roads. But if you're going in some rough terrain, this wouldn't be really viable. Okay then, in here there could be a whole bunch of stuff you can load. Cargo or just mail. At this time, mail, I should say, is pretty sophisticated, and you can kind of send mail if you're in a small city. Like, you can get a response in 1 month or something, and this is the time where mail has really became a pretty good thing to send and receive as well. But this is still mail, and it takes a really long time, and it's delivered by humans, something that's physical. We're just gonna jump in the electronic era here. The first thing that you think of might be telephones? Nah, that's way in the future. The first way of communicating by wire or by signal is rather the teleport. No, not a teleport. The telegraph. The telegraph machine is basically something like this, and it will have a head sticking out, and here something else, and here it's got a spring, so if you push it down, it will always jump up a little bit. It has a small metal thingy here, and then another metal thingy here. If you press it down, it will go beep a little bit. Then you'll know if you pressed it right or not. At this point, we're just going to use dots and dashes, dots to go through some signals. And this is what the Lincoln era, no, not the Lincoln, I think, yeah, the Lincoln used this in the war between South and North America. No, like in America, in North America, in the America that we know today, there are two sides, one pro-slave, the other does not like having slaves. You get the point. Then this actually transmits signal by using wires. At this point, wires aren't that advanced, and basically what they are is, well, there are poles here, and then there are wires in between that will connect them over really long distances. This transmission is rather fast, but the person have to know the Morse code to do it, and to, well, have proficiency over Morse code is actually pretty difficult. And considering this, these lines are really just thin, and some birds or other predators could easily knock over these poles. But this was the first phase, and this was really fast. Maybe you could get a message and a reply in, say, a matter of minutes. But you still have to know Morse code. This was first used in the military, and if you think about it, all of these modes of messaging, and of course a lot of other new technologies, first was applied in military, then it was used by people like normal, average, everyday people, the average Joe. Maybe we should thank the military for a bunch of the new technology that we have, but also maybe blame it for other wars. Anyway, these are the Morse code and the telegraph machine. Then I would say will be the radio. Hey, did the telephone come first or the radio? Radio? Or telephone? Are you sure?
Radio.
Okay. So the radio is pretty standard technology. It's just waves, electronic waves being broadcast. Actually, what I'm drawing here is more like a walkie-talkie kind of thing here. Yeah, you can actually.
It's not a radio.
Yeah, it's a walkie-talkie. A radio is, well, it would look like something like this, pretty large, and then you have a big antenna. But this is a walkie-talkie, the one that police use, and these are electromagnetic things that you send these waves through air, and walkie-talkies and radios, well, they have a really large broadcasting range, but if you only have 2 walkie-talkies, the range would be about 1 kilometer, not 1 kilometer, well, 1,000 meters, wherever. Then, if farther, you can't really receive the message, but you can actually transmit this signal maybe to one radio station and then to another. I don't really know, but this radio is pretty great stuff. They can really just use big towers to broadcast a lot of strong signals to every household radio. Then they'll be able to listen into some news, and that's just great. After the radio, though, we've invested a lot of technology and a lot of other time to invent the telephone. The telephone, I think how it first looked like is something that is really big, like the first computers, say about this size. And then it was smaller and smaller until you kind of see phones that are about this big and this thick, something like that. Then, well, you can see here, as you know, that some old phones, they sort of use these forms of dialing, spinning it. Ding, 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 ding. Heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so these are the spinning ones. After you spin them onto a number, then, well, it's just like dialing, but without buttons. I mean, it works better for them since they didn't really have a lot of really sophisticated electromagnetic and maybe need technology, no control paths or whatever. Okay, so after that, these are immobile, they can only stay in one place. Then, as you all know, we have the BB machine. The BB machine is the thing that comes before the mobile telephone, and the BB machine works fairly simple. You see it's here, it's maybe a machine that's, how big is a big BB machine? Is it heavy?
No.
Just okay. I haven't lived in that era, so I'm just gonna guess maybe the size of my fist.
Just like a matchbox.
Yeah, like a matchbox. Really, really small. Even smaller than our phones today. But it doesn't serve the same purpose as a phone. It's more like a machine, and then there is a small screen here, and it's like 8 by 8 bit or 8 by 11, 12, 13, maybe a few 50, something like that. And then what would happen is you would get a number along with this BB machine. Let's just say 1, 2, 3. And you have a friend whose BB machine number is 321. What will happen is he will go to one of these phone booths. Okay, I'm just going to change it. Phone booth, and then what they would do is, a moment. They will call this number and they will input 1, 2, 3. What will happen is the BB machine will receive the signal, and then what it will do is
Yeah. The BB machine receives signal, and then we boop.
Yeah. Okay, and then we'll beep 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 beep, and then say that this phone booth has a number as well. Let's just say it's 213. Then on this little screen here, it will have 213 written on here. And then what you do is you rush over to the nearest phone booth and then input. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and then in this phone booth you input 213. Then you call over to him, and finally you would connect. This was, well, how BB machines work. And then you don't really have to go to a phone booth. If you're rich enough, you can have one of these phone machines in your own house. Or is there, there's like a small phone machine in your area, or many phone machines in your area, that might be the case. Then you can just call them. We didn't have mobile phones right now, but from this phone, from a BB machine to a phone, that's actually a pretty big leap, considering that our our battery technology wasn't that advanced up until, well, now, and they can store a lot of battery. So the mobile phone ended up being a brick-sized phone that maybe I would guess that most of its weight is due to its battery, and of course a lot of other really, really heavy and bulky electronics. Then what would happen is that it will transition into the flip phone, and then maybe the small phone with these typing gear, and then finally, you know what, your modern phone. After all of these transitions, we get to our webpage. Once we have the internet, we'll start using Skype and whatever other sorts of wacky things that you have used. Even email, that brings us back for a little bit. And then there's apps like WeChat, where you don't really directly call someone, you just sort of type something, WhatsApp, anything like that. And maybe in the future we would have other means of communication. Maybe then we would actually skip talking or skip typing. We'll just connect to each other using our minds or brainwaves. We can communicate to each other. It's actually funny, one of my favorite sci-fi books, The Three-Body Problem, in that the aliens actually communicated using this, using their brainwaves. And you can't really lie to anybody else, or you can't really hold any secrets, and your thoughts are basically free to anyone else. They won't be able to lie and stuff for your society, but they don't really have too much tactics when they're battling as well. Maybe in the future that would happen. Will it be scary? Will it be fun? Well,
So do you know Starlink?
Yeah, I know Starlink.
Yeah, maybe
it's Neuralink.
It's related to this.
No, Starlink isn't. Right. Well, no, not too much. It's the ways of communication that how you improve this way. Well, that's about it. Right now, I mean, you have Starlink as well, but Starlink might be just this big chunk is the Earth. There will be a lot of satellites surrounding the Earth, and after they surround the Earth, well, you could be anywhere on Earth and you will still receive mobile data. it would be a lot better. Someone living in the deep depth of the forests, they'll be able to communicate with the outside world. If they're in like the middle of the Gobi Desert or something, since no one would drag cable there. Well, that's about it for this time. I'm just gonna.
They said that 1 month, 2 months is about 500 yuan.
A month?
你这个东西你看过 YouTube 之后讲的是吧？
哪个？
这些东西
没有。
没有。
So what's the topic?
What is the communication?
Evolution.
Okay.
Evolution of communication.
Evolution 还是
Evolution 都行。
赶紧给我停了嘛。
没有，继续啊。继续西语。法语西语。
我这，你不是说1天半个小时吗？
是啊，1天半个小时。
我现在英语都占了20分钟啊。
那你在西语再说。
而且今天西语我已经说了2个小时了，要不就算了。
那你再说10分钟吧，10几分钟，哇，简化题说10几分钟。
没有，我先休息2分钟。
好。
你刚才几期你觉得你说的好不好？不好。
为啥？
中间有点卡卡的。
卡不是？那你说卡是什么原因嘛？你自己觉得是啥原因？
他对这个东西好像不是特别的。
你先别着急嘛。
好，你说。
我有可能是这个英语词汇量，反正就是有的时候有可能有2个词就忘了怎么说了。
词儿忘了怎么说了，最后你说出来了还是没
说出来了？
就刚开始你忘了。
你用 transmit 还包括我。
刚开始你忘了，到最后你说了第一次是不是失败了，或者是没说全，到第2次你突然又想起来了，是吧？
对。
你是那个词的发音给忘了还是什么？忘了。
词的发音。
哪个词儿？
忘了。
哪个词儿不是忘了？现在又忘了。
不是我忘了，我刚刚哪个词儿没说了。
还有那是什么？message 是吧
？message 啊。
但我怎么看听到你有声样说 message 什么东西
？messenger 嘛。对啊。
我
说了呀，就是那个人。
messenger。
message。不是 messy， 那你说到人的是 messing 嘛
？messenger 啊。
人那边的
messenger 吧。
messenger。
Hey
Google. Hey Google. How to pronounce messenger?
That's pronounced messenger.
Hey Google. How to pronounce message? Hey Google. How to pronounce message?
That's pronounced message.
他是不是顺着你的话来
？How to pronounce message messenger?
That's pronounced message messenger.
Messenger.
那就好。
How to spell?
Hey Google. How to spell messenger?
Messenger is spelled M-E-S-S-E-N-G-E-R.
它是多了一个 n。
多了一个 n 是吧？好，继续吧。
我需要气。
好。这不敢喝水了，不敢大量喝水了。
我喝都早都9点半了。
对呀。
那我还点作业没做完呢。
算了，去做。
不，这讲10分钟吧，讲10分钟，每天这个。
对，我这是作业，也没有多少。
这个流程不敢打断了，打断你看中间咱们又断了。这流程不敢。
行吧，那我赶过来再讲10分钟。
好。
我先把这个。
哎，你画的那东西也太不像了，我的天呐，你那。
我觉得我画的好像还可以啊。
天呐，你那鸽子谁真能认上你那是鸽子火鸡？
它能不能认出来是一个鸟就行了吧？
然后你那个马就像个呀。
哎呀，我看到我还以为这是屁股，这是头。
你说他那个子像啥？
哎呀，我这把这当成头，把这当成屁股了。我说他的屁股，他画了屁股翘起来，或者就是，哎呀，把这他是不是也不像呀？
这是两个嘴巴。
啊，嘴巴张开着是吧？
嘴巴张开嘛。
行。哎，对呀，我觉得你现在还是要把咱们的绘画板要用起来的。你每次你跟他们说的时候，你不管怎么样，你有时间用画画辅助一下。你不是这个也一般也是练的，知道吧？你练的多了，可能你就慢慢有用了。你一边回忆这个，一边练。
好吧，那我继续挑个主题，我们那个主题纸。
在这儿。哎，对呀，你把你的主题都每天标上日期，你给写下来。当你讲不完的，你
每天都能讲。
你看，来，这是
不是，我说节省飞机。right. Don't know, but today I want to talk about. Hoy quiero hablar sobre un pez. Este pez es en realidad solo muy bien. Es un pez muy famoso en el mundo del sushi, especialmente en Japón. Se llama salmon. Creo que es el nombre en español, pero no sé. Puede ser algún otro tipo de nombre que no entiendo, pero seguramente es algo parecido a salmon, que es en inglés. Y se parece, bueno, carne se parece un poco así, y no lo sé, este color un poco de quizás rosado y también un poco, bueno, no sé qué es este color, no sé, solo no sé, pero este tipo de pez es realmente comida de millones y millones de otras especies. Primero, los salmon sí son criaturas que están muy buenas, los árboles les comen, los osos les comen, y también los ballenas, esto es, porque hay como una tradición de ellos que son especialmente solo muy espectacular. Bueno, hay dos partes de vida de este salmon. Uno es que van a vivir en el océano. Y lo que pasa es que primero van a vivir en, lagos y quizás otros lugares. Y lo que pasa es que cuando están bebés van a crecer aquí, y van a crecer un poco, y después de ser un adulto van a ir al mar, regresar al mar, y cuando estás en el mar van a vivir por un corto tiempo, quizás algo a largo, pero para reproducir y buscar una buena novia o novio o lo que sea, necesita regresar a este lugar, regresar al como el lago para buscar como su chica o su chico. Y bueno, van a repetir un poco. Y creo que la razón es que cuando son bebés es mucho mejor para vivir en los lagos, porque en los lagos no hay tantos, peces que son más largos que van a comerlo. Pero también es muy espectacular como es que puedes vivir en los lagos que son agua fresca y en el mar que son agua salada. Esto es muy importante, no hay tantos animales en el océano que puedes vivir en ambos lugares, en el lago y también en el océano. Y cuando van a regresar en esta forma, lo que pasa es que algunas veces los osos, no sé cómo dibujar un oso, pero sería algo así. Los osos los van a comer, estos son osos. Los osos van a comer, y también algunas veces los osos no van a comer solo carne, pero también unas veces otras partes, creo que los espinas, las cosas montiagudas, pero la mayoría de las veces solo van a quizás borrarlo o solo tirarlo como basura. Y esto es una muy buena oportunidad para los árboles. Aquí no recuerdo especialmente cómo se llaman estos árboles, pero ellos los necesitan. Todos los árboles les necesitan unos alimentos. Probablemente necesito ver este video sobre esto una vez más, pero en el cuerpo de los peces hay como unos tipos de lo digamos cosas de los árboles, todos los árboles les necesitan para vivir. Y lo que pasa es que este árbol que está cerca de lago no hay ninguna forma para obtenerlo por algunas veces. Es que ellos van a tratar de tener estos tipos de salmon cuando ellos están bajo tierra. Algo no van a comerlo, pero más como tener toda su energía, y estos son como elementos y el árbol van a hacer. No es como unos tipos de insectos en plantas en el mundo como ellos que van a comerlos. Son diferentes, pero también son espectaculares o estos tipos de animales que van a comer, pero sí, también esto es lo que pasa. Pero los ballenas los comen también porque hay muchos comida y son muy buena comida. Quizás las ballenas les aman comer estos tipos de pescados también, o quizás no. No sé tanto sobre esto. Estos días escucho por coronavirus y los salmons capturaron, pero porque hay una compañía que van a comprar estos salmons, pero unas personas que trabajan dentro de la compañía era infectado con el coronavirus. Ahora las personas se preocupan que este coronavirus puede afectar a cosas en el mar también, pero creo que no, probablemente eso que hay como dos compañías o hay dos tipos de personas. Uno es que las personas que están trabajando en el mar y lo que van a hacer es que van a capturar peces, pero los humanos que está sobre tierra van a comprarlo y venderlo en supermercados. En este proceso quizás las personas sobre cosa en el mar, la cosa que van a capturar a todos los peces, en este momento, se van a tocar su musgo o algo y ya. Ellos van a tener el coronavirus. Esto es todas las noticias sobre este pez, que es una leyenda o un examen. ¿Hay algo que quieres saber?
他啥都不懂，他啥都不知道。
好吗？
猜到了，你猜到他讲啥了没？
没有，
没有讲啥。那你知道他画的那东西是啥不？
画的是杨柳嘛，
杨柳。
水嘛，那
杨
是
柳里头那是啥东西嘛？
那兔子嘛，这是啥？
你知道吗？
我知道你讲鱼嘞。
但那个东西是啥？
那个东西啊，那个东西你说是 also 是啥东西我不知道。